Yo, good looks to dreadsock.com for sponsoring this episode of Real Notes. Anyone who has curly or locked hair like me knows how sacred a good hair wrap is. A do-rag, a wave cap, a scarf, a bandana, a bonnet, you name it. Dreadsock goes a step beyond the average with silk-based head wraps that offer full protection and frizz control for curls from 2A to 4C. They're made of a blend of breathable materials to help retain hair's moisture and preserve hairstyles enough to ensure a few less trips to the salon, all held down with an elastic band strong enough to withstand even the most aggressive head trips. Whether you wear one to bed or wear one on the go, Dreadsock will have you looking fresh and full. Socks come in all sizes, from shorties for short hair and beginner twists to extra large for the longer locked folks out there. Look, y'all, I've been growing my locks for nearly 2 decades and have been a loyal Dreadsock customer for 15 years. So when I tell you these shits work, I'm dead ass. Plus, they're an independent, black-owned business that's worth the time and energy. So go to dreadsock.com and use promo code CineMasai, that's CineMasai, for 10% off your first order. They won't fall off in your sleep, but they will keep you looking fresh. Thanks again to Dreadsock for sponsoring the episode. Now let's keep this shit moving. What's good, y'all? My name is Dylan Green, and this is Real Notes, a space dedicated to blurring the cultural and artistic lines between rap and film. I'm here to chop it up with everyone from rappers and producers to journalists and video directors about their relationship to movies and how, if at all, film inspires their craft. My guest this week is New York-via-Maine photographer and director Alexander Richter. We spoke about Top Boy, the James Bond series, how both his parents inspired his early love for film and photography, his career as a music photographer, including stories shooting Sean Price's Jesus Price album cover and a 50 Cent cover story, his extensive history with Backwoodz and Backwoodz Studioz, and the creative process behind Dark Brother Rise, his 2020 short film about the eponymous hip-hop photographer from Queensbridge. Come fuck with us. What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back. Welcome back to Real Notes. It's I don't know what the weather like. I don't know what the weather's like outside anymore. I was outside 4 hours ago, but it's late September. Things are feeling good. Things are a little less busy, and life's feeling pretty sweet. I got extra toasty Cheez-Its, so we're lit. My name's Dylan Green, CineMasai. Got a lot of names, do a lot of shit, be around, be outside. And I'm with somebody today who is also outside a ton, has been outside for just like, he's everywhere and doing a lot all the time. And I appreciate him. I appreciate him taking the time to like come and sit and talk to me about like film and rap music and photography and filmmaking and just like, yeah, this man's a photographer. He's taking pictures of pretty much all your favorite rappers. I'm gonna go ahead and guess that pretty much everyone's favorite rapper on planet Earth has a photo with this guy. He works at Backwoodz. He's worked with a bunch of other people. He's made films. He's around. He's an encyclopedia. He's Alexander fucking Richter. We got Richter in the house today. Very, very happy to have him here. Yo,
thank you for having me on, bro. Very beautiful introduction. So thank you for the kind words. I appreciate all that.
Yeah, nah, man. Like it's, like I feel like I tell you this every time I see you. Like you're just like your resume speaks for itself, and like and yeah, you were mentioning it off camera. I think the last time I caught you for a little bit was at the Woods and Siegel show, Baby's All Right, and then before that was when we were at Willie Green's studio and we were taking the pictures for the
yes, sir.
the Backwoodz piece I wrote, and like we had been talking about it for a while, and it just seemed only right to have you come on and talk about like your photo and film work, and maybe even dig a little bit into the day we spent at the greenhouse. And
yes, sir,
there's a lot of shit. So yeah, just like like as someone who's been a fan of your work for years, just like thank you for being here and thank you for doing what you do.
Hey, bro, I appreciate you taking the time to ask me to be on your program, man. So again, I know you're busy with lots of cool folks. So dig the fact that I got invited to the cipher,
Oh man, there's room for everybody who contributes good shit here. So I'm just happy to provide the platform. So
yeah, man. Great.
Hell yeah. So before let me ask you the first question I ask everybody who comes on here. What was the last movie or TV show you watched that you had a strong opinion about?
Strong opinion. I guess right now, television wise, I have started this program, although I guess it's a bit old, called Yellow Jackets.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of cool, you know what I mean? Not that that's a profound, deep opinion, but are you familiar with it?
I am, but I haven't seen any of it. Like
Okay.
everybody I know loves it. It's been on my list, but I'll get there. But
Okay.
tell me more about it.
Again, program, it seems you're out of New Jersey, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So it seems to be following a group of high school girls from New Jersey who are soccer athletes, and they're on their way to, I imagine, some sort of national match in the Pacific West. And the plane suffers a catastrophic accident, and they all crash down in the middle of nowhere. And you're left with a group of girls with trying to figure out, oh, hey, they're going to come rescue us quickly, turning into, oh, shit, nobody's coming to get us. So as a result of that, you know how life can do out in the woods. You got to figure out survival and everything, mixed personalities, leaders, who is the de facto kind of alpha of a group that can kind of guide you as you're figuring your shit out. And yeah, it's cool, man. I mean, it's been entertaining. My wife and I have been watching it, so you know, it's like I'm digging it, you know, overall.
That's tight. That's like Lord of the Flies type shit.
Well,
I
I
was
didn't want to say that, but that's really
yeah.
what it does seem to be feeling too. You know, it's like you don't want to go there yet, but you know, I mean, things get, you don't want to say recycled, but you know, the
Of course,
idea
yeah.
seems to be like, okay, there could be some schism here, and then like in Lord of the Flies, it's one click against the other click. Although I'm only in finishing this first season, you know, I haven't gotten much into past that. So I'm sure somebody could hear this and be like, oh, bro, you got it all wrong. It's about to be this other thing, you know, but for
Right.
right now, it's cool.
Yeah, no, we're moving in real time. That's all that matters, you know. And how many seasons is it so far? It's just 2, right?
I believe so. But again, like I wouldn't quote myself on that. But yeah. The other thing I just recently started top was the Top Boy. I jumped into
Ah,
a
you just started it? Crazy.
just very late, bro, very late. So, you know, I kind of was curious to see. I had a moment where I was like kind of just chilling out, and I said, you know, everybody seems to love this program. So let me check it out and see what it's about, you know? Like I don't want to give too much of my own opinion yet because I'm only into the second episode, you know, but I'm curious to see how it unfolds, or similar to The Wire and yet very different, I'm sure, you know, but
Right.
there's some things that seem to be connective tissue.
Man, like it's so crazy you brought this up. I just finished the last season that just came out a couple weeks ago. I think I finished it like maybe 2-3 days ago. I think I finished it the same day I finished the Prodigy book, which
Look
we
at you,
it's funny how that worked out.
dialed in.
I think I picked it up. A couple people had recommended it to me. I can't remember who suggested I start watching it, but like as soon as I start, it's one of those shows where like as soon as you start it, like you don't hear anybody else talking about it, but as soon as you do, like the people who watch it just kind of find you, you know, like
Yeah, man.
I got like 4 homies that I talked to. Like I literally had like a 20-minute conversation with my homie Kemba, like about the ending of fucking Top Boy. Cause like it's just like I wish I liked the last season more than I did. I thought the ending was kind of anticlimactic, but like the point that you're at right now, like those. Well, okay. Now I gotta ask. So, are you watching the first like new Netflix season, or are you watching Top Boy Summer House? Where did you start?
Summer House.
Okay, cool. So you're starting at the very beginning. Yeah, nah, like it's like that's where I started to, and yeah,
Like there
man,
are
like
parts of it that I'm like, this kind of bullshit, but that at the same time, I'm just like, okay, you know, your suspension of disbelief to kind of just be like, let me just roll with this. These
right.
two dudes trying to get their game on, dealing with Rakes, the white guy who's running the program, you know, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, you know, just without putting too much. Like I'm not from London, I'm not from the UK, so you know, I
Right.
don't know exactly how man runs the road all the time over there. You know what I mean? So I'm just kind of
Yeah.
like, trying to get into it, but you know, there are already moments that I'm like, well, it's crazy that everybody loves this, but let me just go down it and, you know, see if I can get through it.
Right. I hate to be that person, but like it gets better once you get to like the Netflix revival part. But like, it's like the whole thing, like you just like you'll see eventually if you get that far. But like Deshane is just pure evil, bro. He's awful. He's like he's just like he's just like chaotic, not even chaotic evil. He's like lawful. No, I would call him chaotic evil. You know, he's just very like get my money no matter how, just like get my money no matter who needs to get hurt, no matter who. Just, he's like the guy who plays him is incredible. The guy who plays Sully is incredible. The rapper Kano, who I love.
I thought he looked familiar.
Yeah.
That's Kano.
Yeah, nah, cause like I had heard his music before, but I had never seen him act ever. So like seeing him play Sully, he's like he's so good. Like it's even, you know, like like one of the reasons I liked the series finale as much as I did of the new one was because he's fantastic in it. Like there's a whole monologue he gives at the real end. It's nuts. I don't know. I don't want to spoil too much, but like you'll hopefully. I hate to compare it to The Wire. Like it's kind of like a lazy comparison. It's apt, but it's there. You know, it is what it is.
You don't want to be down there, but you're kind of like, well, we got drugs, we got poverty, we have marginalized communities. You know, we have white men doing bad things.
Yeah, fucking and you got great music. Like one of the things, especially in the later seasons, I started paying attention to like. I'm like the music choices are super duper fire. Like I'm not super familiar with every song they choose, but like every needle drop just works. You know, you know, like naturally it's a lot of drill, especially in the later seasons. It's a lot of drill, a lot of Afro beats, a lot of dance hall. Like they just pick great music. It's just really, you know, like I'm always, you know, like being at the intersection as I am and as you are. I'm always really fascinated with like music supervising stuff.
Hell
and just
yeah,
like
I
how
was just gonna say,
I love that shit.
It's so critical, bro. I mean, when you have good music that seems apropos, you're just like, yeah, the person who's behind the scenes knows what's up, not just slamming in some whack music in a moment that you're like, man, this shit is not right. This is like, you know, it's got to feel subtle, but at the same time, right on point. You know, it's something that only a person, man, woman, whatever, he, she, they, whatever, knows like this is what I have to have in here to really fill out behind the visual, you know?
Right. Yeah. No.
Your question did make me think, did you ever see the movie Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal?
Oh yeah, I love Nightcrawler movies.
That was
crazy.
A fucking rad movie.
Yeah.
I saw that a little while ago and I'm just suddenly thinking, I'm like, that, you know, because I'm here talking about television and I'm like, nah, the movie that I'd seen it like a couple of months ago and I was like, or a month ago, I was like, that was pretty badass, dude. Like, I'm not a crazy Jake Gyllenhaal fan, but he did a great job in that film.
Man, yeah, no, I saw that shit when it came out. I think it's been I think it's been almost 10 years. It might have been like old. Right after. Yeah, it might have been right. It was either right before or right after I graduated from college. But like, oh, like just like the performance is great. The you know the subject matter is like super right for like they explored that exactly how it needed to be explored.
Yeah,
you know, like he's like, bro, is despicable. He's somebody like who's like Deshane. You know,
well,
like
I was just gonna say,
you know,
right? Like, by any means.
Yeah, just
let
like
me get my news story and do what I got to do.
Man, like I'm like the scene when he's in the bathroom and he's just like staring himself down and like trying to feel an emotion before he like screams into the mirror. Like, yeah, nah, Jake Gyllenhaal, he put his foot in it, man. He put his ankle in that shit. Love that movie.
Yes, dude. Yes. So at least there's something that besides television we could say, yo, this film was banging. If you haven't seen it out there, dial it in on the computer wherever you see it or on the stream, and it was a good one.
Yeah, please, man. Like it used to be on Netflix. I don't know if it is anymore. It's crazy you brought that up too, because I was just talking to my I was talking to my partner about this maybe like a week ago, because we were talking about Nightcrawler because we saw it together. The guy Dan Gilroy, right? I think his name's Dan
That
Gilroy.
is
Who
the
wrote the
director. Yeah, I believe
right.
so.
So yeah. So he wrote and directed Nightcrawler, and Jake Gyllenhaal starred in it. Obviously, they made another movie for Netflix called Velvet Chainsaw. I don't know if you saw Velvet Chainsaw.
Nah, is it good?
It's not as good. It's interesting and it's cool and it's definitely worth the watch. It's kind of dealing with the same stuff, like except instead of it being like a newsroom and like, you know, like if it bleeds it's more about like conceptual art and like a bunch of people who are it feels like a Twilight Zone episode kind of.
I
It's
love
it's
Twilight
it's
Zone.
it's cool. Like it's not as good as an episode of the Twilight Zone, but like that's kind of the vibe
Sure.
they're going for, you know. Like it's like a, you know, I mean, like take your pick from any anthology series, Twilight Zone, Tales from the Crypt, whatever. Like it's kind of
Yeah.
got that vibe to it. Like I'd even go so far as to call it like I'd even go so far as to call it like a high end, like pretentious art hipster Goosebumps type of thing. You know, it's in that type of space. I like it. It's on
Velvet
Netflix.
Chainsaw.
Yeah, it's worth the watch, I think.
Yeah, man. I mean, definitely, you know, I trust your taste. And if you say you like it after we say I like this other one, then, you know, I'm not opposed to throwing it down and seeing how it goes. You know, it's like if the director did one film really well, then hopefully, you know, there's some consistency, even if it's in thematically, you know, kind of the same thing, maybe a little different, but, you know, it's like, hey, I'm cool to rock with that, you know. So definitely we'll put it down and see if my wife and I can have it check it out.
Nice. Yeah, no, like if you're in that headspace, it's definitely worth a spin.
Yeah.
Now for you, I wanna dig into more of your taste and see what you're coming with and like how this all started for you. So like, what's the first movie experience you can remember having? It could be at the theater, it could be at your cousin's house. The first thing that comes to mind for you.
James Bond.
Ooh, which one?
Oh man, I was a big Bond fan growing up. You Only Live Twice was a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Moonraker was a big one.
Oh, nobody talks about Moonraker. That's nuts.
Oh, dude. The Man with the Golden Gun was a big one. Dr. No. I mean, like literally, like early James Bond, Sean Connery, more so than Roger Moore, was really like was something that I really enjoyed doing, watching. You know, there was something about kind of Hugh with his gadgets and Sean, you know, James with his being just badass, kind of murking everybody, getting all the
Yeah.
ladies. No problems there. Have a cocktail, you know, murk some more people, tell people your name straight to their face as you're about to kill them. Classic
Yeah.
cinema. Well shot, well done, you know. Definitely James Bond early on. And if I think about other films, early on, I can think about going to the cinema and seeing Gremlins in the theater when it was out when I was a
Mm-hmm.
little kid. I used to go, she's passed away now, but when my mother was alive and I was a little kid, you know, she used to try to, like, you know, for a nice little thing, take us to go see a flick or two. So definitely there was a lot, but James was definitely up there as far as poignant early cinema.
Felt. So do you remember the first James Bond movie you saw?
I believe it would be You Only Live Twice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was in Belgium when I was like traveling with my mother was from northern Spain, from the Basque Country. My
Oh,
father
crazy.
was from Germany, and we were visiting family and some friends of hers, and they you know, probably stuck me in a room to go watch some films as they went and had their adult things or whatever, you know. And I remember the guy who was the owner of the house. He had the sickest collection, you know. At that point, it was VHS tapes,
Uh-huh.
but it was like every, you know, he had like, before I knew what a man cave was the man cave, you know. So I remember he put it on, and yeah, it was definitely like a good experience. being up there by myself, kind of watching the flick, being like, oh shit. I had heard about James Bond from my mother through my father had passed away, but like she would tell me, oh yeah, you know, your dad was big into these Ian Fleming books and all of this stuff.
Right.
And so, you know, probably looking for connective tissue to somebody who was no longer here, I was like, hey, let me try to watch some of these movies that the old man was into, you know?
Oh man, that's beautiful. Wow. Like you know, like that's you know, like having, you know, like at least being able to like follow those breadcrumbs that maybe weren't like directly left for you, but like you saw like, oh hey, my dad liked this. Let
Hell
me
yeah,
jump into
that's
that.
how
Yeah,
the
like,
whole, not to jump the gun, but the photos that I started making came from him discovering the cameras way later on in life. So blessings
right.
to him for he left me some jewels out there before I was even ready to pick them up. You know, it was like he's been gone a long time, but without him, you know, I mean, obviously all of us wouldn't be here without our families, but
Right.
I attribute a lot without ever even knowing him that I'm like, yeah, you know, I got this from you. So these interests come somewhere through the DNA.
Yeah, no, I've as I get older, I notice that with my parents a lot too. Luckily I have both my parents with me still for the
Hell
time
yeah.
being. My dad's 78 and my mother is 64, 63,
Yeah,
right?
man.
But either way, you know, like just like I just like notice that like the way I do things or like certain things I like or the way that I like experience things kind of comes from seeing them do it.
For
It's like, you know,
sure.
it's like having that 2020 hindsight, you know, like hindsight really is 2020, man. Like
For
it's
sure.
like
The
everything.
imprints,
So
the imprint on them, and the more, you know, with time, you know what I mean, you just be like, damn, I am a lot like my old man, or I am like my mom, or you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and that's a beautiful thing, you know what I mean? Because again, life is fragile and it's temporary. So it's like at some point we all get that moment where it's like, damn, that person's no longer here, but you can look at the foundation of who you are and who they were and kind of see how they tie together, you know, whether
right.
music, art, you know, literature, science, whatever one might be fucking into, like being a machinist, you know, or whatever. It's like,
Yeah,
you know, obviously plenty of people also have terrible parents. So I'm not trying to say like, you know, but in our experience,
yeah,
hopefully, and mine, like, you know, my mother shouldered a lot, was by herself and did what she did. And, you know, I give her thanks for all of that. And I'm sure for you, you know, 77 is not 57. So it's like, you know, you see it, you know what life is, and you embrace it and you honor it for where you are now and where it'll go down the road, you know, and you take all of that and learn and do your best to express to those people, hey man, I appreciate all the knowledge you gave me, all the love, things that you don't have to share when people are no longer here. You take the time to share it now so that
right.
those people hear it, you know, and know like, oh man, Dylan gets it. My boy, I did right, you know, whatever. My mother did right, you know, and it's like, you see people, man, you see the foundation of who folks are, and you can kind of get a vibe of the parents or the people who help mold them behind that, you know?
Yeah, I try to notice that with whoever I get the chance. Like, you know, like if I get the chance to be around people's parents, I'll just like notice like, oh, that's why you do that, or like, oh,
Right?
that's why, you know, like, it's always fun.
It's
Um,
very true.
right. And with James Bond in particular,
Did you watch any
my
of those?
oh yeah. I'd seen you know, like I came in. It's funny because my parents both like James Bond. I don't remember the first one I saw, but the first experience I remember having with James Bond was GoldenEye, the
Yeah,
N64 game.
sure.
So like
Oh,
that was, yeah, like what a, you know, like that was, you know, like that was like that was one of like the big M-rated games like everybody wanted to play. Like if you had an N64 and you had GoldenEye, you were it. Like
Woods and I
everybody
used to play that like crazy.
wanted.
No proximity mines. You had to have certain laws so that you couldn't
Yeah,
just be out there blasting people, bro.
or the laser guns. You couldn't have the
Yeah,
laser
man.
guns either.
There were certain armaments that were just not wavy they were wavy if you had them, but they weren't wavy if you
Right.
didn't have them. You'd suddenly be like, man, I'm dead all the time because somebody just throwing these bombs on a wall and you run around, boom, life
Right.
over. That was a fun game.
Yeah, nah, I know I know they put it out on they put out like an emulator for it on the Switch a while ago, but I think you need to have like a specific like online thing to get to it. So like I'll
Okay.
play it again at some point, but I think but like if I had to pick the first Bond movie that I saw, I think it was either The World Is Not Enough or Die Another Day.
Okay.
It might have been Die Another Day.
Dig
But
it.
as I got older, I went back and like I'm looking at the titles now just to make sure I remember them all. I think my favorite is either From Russia with Love or On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is funny because nobody likes the George Lazenby one, but I like Her Majesty's Secret Service. I think it's cool.
Yeah. Well, and again, I mean, that's the cool thing about those programs, the series. It's like, depending when you dial into it, you know, it kind of has a different note. So it's like,
Yeah.
you could be a Roger Moore fan. Later on, somebody's a Timothy Dalton fan. Earlier
Yeah.
on, somebody's a Sean Connery fan. His name is escaping me right now. The most recent,
Daniel Craig.
yeah, you know, Daniel Craig could be the person that you'd be like, bro, that's the best James Bond there ever was, you know? So it's like the story, as long as it connects to you, you know, that's kind of the most important, that you're like, yo, I remember people being like, From Russia with Love. Nah, that's not it. But, you know, it's like, hey, it doesn't matter. People would be like, fucking, you know, I mean, Goldfinger, it's like The Man with the Golden Gun, you know, it's like, these are classics. But again, I just feel like when one connects with something, it's kind of like silly to try to like split hairs and be like, no, this one's better or that one's better. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, you have your favorites, like a discography of somebody's music. It's not always going to be in agreement with somebody else. You find that little pocket that fucks with the same thing you do. And then there's other people who are going to be like, nah, I prefer this other thing. And you might not even think about that one, you know?
Right, and that speaks to the quality of the work on top of that, you know? Like it's like I can't really think of like there aren't really any other like like you know like film series that have run as long as James Bond has, and like there's like I've been through so many actors, so many directors, so
Yes.
many you know like so many different Bonds, so many different Qs, so many
Yes.
different money pennies, you
Yes.
know, like it's you know like there's like you know like there like it's like how do you choose, you know, like not to say that they're all good, like obviously the
No, and they're
quality kind
not.
of like you know like it's but like you know there's enough there for you to kind of have to step back and be like like it like you know, like you could see why somebody might prefer From Russia with Love over Tomorrow or over Die Another Day, or why somebody might prefer Casino Royale to Octopussy, I don't know, but
Yes.
like you know there's a lot to chew on there, and like and just like watching the styles change and like and kind of stay the same. I'm like I can say pretty confidently that I kind of hated No Time to Die. I really wanted to like it on the very last one. Like you could tell Daniel Craig didn't want to be there.
Right.
He had already like and like I'm not gonna mince words. When he was interviewed about it after he did Skyfall or whatever the one before it was, he said like I would rather slit my wrist than play James Bond again. And then
Right.
MGM was like, we
Contract.
got this we got this big bag of money for you.
Yeah.
Please come do one more.
Right.
And you know,
And your
and
man
then
said, okay.
he said fine, like one more, you know, like and like they made sure to kill him off. He got hit with a missile.
Right.
He was on the island when it
Yes.
exploded. Like he's
Yes.
out, you know.
Yes.
Like I'm excited to see where and it or I mean I'm sure it's gonna continue, but I'm excited to see like who they get to do it next. And like I know they've been tossing around rumors that the woman who
Idris.
was
Oh, the
double
woman, right.
yeah, yeah. I remember Idris was first, but oh man, I don't want to do her like that. What was her name? Not Naomi Harris. Naomi Harris was Moneypenny. I gotta hang on. I'm
The
gonna
other
look it up real
secret
quick.
agent, right?
Yeah. She's the new 007.
Right.
Her name is, her character's name is Nomi. The actress is Latasha Lynch. Boom. I'm so
Got
mad
it.
I forgot her name. But
Hey
yeah, no, like,
man, at least you're quick to the computer to be able to pull it up without having a big pause. You know what I mean? Of neither of us knowing. Yeah, she did a
right.
great job, and she's supposed to be slated to be the next one, right?
I hope.
If they come forward.
Yeah, I hope so. You know, I think she did great, and I like her stage presence, and I've seen her in a bunch of other stuff. She's phenomenal. So yeah, she deserves it.
Yeah.
I hope they do. We'll see.
And again, I mean, I think that's just like them willing to shake the paradigm, to be like, all right, man, this is been a masculine forward fucking character forever, and it's like we need to flip it and do something else, you know, put a woman of color, like something that's going to be the antithesis of Scottish Sean Connery or Roger or Timothy or again Daniel Craig, all of these white, and more white, you know, again.
Yeah.
That was fine for that time, but you know, like anything, it would be nice to see things get like mixed up a bit, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And you know those fans are gonna be pissed
Well,
when it happens too. And
yes,
that's fine, you know. Like like we can handle them. It's just funny to think about. But yeah, I hope they do the right thing. Like once the strikes are over and they start figuring out how to make movies again, I hope
crazy, right?
Yeah, I hope they get all the money. They all deserve it. You know,
Hell yeah.
Disney was just talking about we're about to invest $60 million into the theme parks, and they're talking about, oh, we don't have any money to pay the writers and the actors. Like, fuck you. Like, come on now.
Yeah, dude. No, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, it's like, and what people are arguing for and trying to like advocate about, you know, it's no laughing matter. So I mean, it's like people need to be properly compensated and taken care for what they contribute. You know, all of this, you know, somebody could tell you, oh, entertainment is just like the pacification of people's minds or, you know, whatever, but you're just like, it is key to have it, you know. It does do a lot. It's not always just kind of like sit there and not think, but it does make you think. So it's like, okay, people need to negotiate and get that bread. And if the studios want to sit behind until they realize they have no content, no nothing, then you know they're going to be in a sticky situation, you know.
Yeah. So not to quote my boy Def C, sometimes people got to learn gravity the hard way.
Right.
You know?
What's up, Def C? How are you, big dog?
Shout out to Adam. I'm really excited about the Golem of Brooklyn. Him and Messiah music. They tore it up. Y'all didn't hear it from me, but they tore it up. The album's great.
Yeah, man. I got an email with it last week, so definitely was pretty stoked to see what's going on. Very talented artists, shall I say, because Messiah is phenomenal in his own right.
Beautiful, man. I really love the two of them. Yeah, like, you know, you were just talking about just like things, you know, like movies are gonna make you think no matter what you're watching most of the time. But like as you got older, can you remember the first movie you saw as you got older that really kind of like stopped you in your tracks and was more than just like 90 minutes of entertainment, like, you know, just like a capital M movie, just like something that really you know, like not even necessarily, it doesn't have to be in like an artful way. It could be something that appealed to you artistically, emotionally, intellectually, just like the first time you remember being you know, like met halfway in that way.
I mean, I don't know if it sounds weird, but early on I remember watching this film called Colors. And you know, it was like a window into a world that I wasn't familiar with. I grew up in the East Coast. I never was out in LA. I wasn't, you know, familiar with the cultures. Definitely wasn't familiar with the corrupt police, you know, that was going on over there. And I mean, albeit a fictional film, I remember having like, oh, you know, I was already starting to I think I probably found it because I was finding myself getting into hip hop and rap music and stuff like that, you know? And so kind of
Right.
the music was leading me down exploring different like different elements of life, right? So um yeah, I remember watching it. Robert Duvall and I think Sean Penn was in there, and
Yeah.
uh the director right now is slipping my mind, dude. But
And man, it's Dennis Hopper. Dennis Hopper.
okay, so say no more. So already we got a trifecta of, like, you know, plus all the other characters that were there. Yeah, I thought it was a cool film. And again, you know, I grew up in a small town in Maine, so it's like, you know, this was the antithesis of the environment where I was, you know what I mean? And yet,
Right.
because of my family traveling usually to Europe, like I did have a world outside of a small town, you know what I mean? And so the film was a deeper exploration. As my family, we would go to international. This was more of a focus on America, you know, and kind
Right.
of peeling the onion back a little bit. Not about all society, but definitely, you know, I mean, from then till now and in the inception of this country, police have never really been doing a lot of good stuff for the community.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's if you're willing to see it and watch with open eyes, to not be under the blinders of like, hey, protect and serve. It's protect and serve property. It's protect and serve money. It's, you know, it's not
Yeah.
really protect and serve community. You know what I mean? And so, you know, it's complicated. And I know I don't want somebody out there to be like, oh, well, you're parsing over things. But, you know, it was a fictional film that tied into a lot of LA life, gang life, and the realities that go along it for everybody, whether you're Chicano, black, white, whatever, you know what I mean? It was
Right.
like an exploration of people trying to see, like, hey, man, these are how things are, you know? That was an
Yeah.
early film that I feel like uh, I really liked. And I love the soundtrack.
Yeah. No, I see had the song on the soundtrack and
Yeah, man.
everything. Yeah.
It was, yo, I have that record. I got, you know, like, I'm a big vinyl record collector. So it's like, you know, I have records from when I was a young kid that I'm like, this was connected to that film. You know what I mean? Reasons why you
Right.
buy one from the other is because one thing inspired the other, you know?
Right. Yeah, no, I haven't seen Colors in years. I've seen it once. It was I can't remember when it was, but I remember also being really affected by it. And you know, like I grew up in Jersey. I'm right outside New York City. So like I kind of had like, you know, like I'm like I grew up in the burbs, but like, you know, like I had family in the city, so I would be in the city pretty often. And, you know, like
Right.
I would see, you know, like I had all of that near me. I'm 20 minutes from Newark on top of that. So like,
Sure.
you know, like I'm like I have, you know, like I had a lot of that surrounding me. So
Right.
it's not like that was new, but you know, I really appreciate the way that movies like, you know, like Colors, and I feel like I've mentioned it a bunch on here in the past, but like Menace to Society and
Yes.
Boys in the
I
Hood
saw
were
that
like
in
two
the
movies that,
theater.
yeah, you know, like those. Yeah, you know, like I didn't go to California for the first time until 2018. So
Yeah.
I was already like in my mid to late 20s at that point, you know, and like seeing and, you know, like being
Right.
in California and seeing and hearing things that I had seen and heard in Boys in the Hood and Message Society, and just like seeing that in real life was like, oh, okay, so this is what you meant by like this is what a fat burger is, you know, like this
Yeah,
is
man.
this is this is what it means when you get snaps on the petrol, you know, like that type of shit.
Right.
Like
Yes, dude. I mean,
and
again, like,
obviously,
you know, culturally, East and West, they're very different. And yet there's so many things that unified, obviously, especially
right, like the police
when you get
presence,
into,
like
yeah, when you get into real, like, I mean, if you're doing it on a macro or micro, shall I say, you know, law enforcement and that type of element to society, especially to Black and brown communities, it was like, you know, it felt poignant, you know?
yeah. Definitely. It's, like that, like I'll watch stuff like that with my dad on occasion, and like and like he grew up in the Bronx. He grew up in the Melrose projects. So like
Okay.
he's, like that's like he knows a lot of that stuff firsthand. And
Sure.
there'll be some times where he's like, I can't watch this.
Sure.
Like, so it's just like taking that into consideration and just thinking about the fact that like I'm a generation removed from that. And that's, and like just like kind of like we were talking about with like parents and like noticing things before, just like noticing how, like that's another instance where I just kind of sit back and I'm just like, oh, so like this is why he feels that way. And like I think like
Right.
I'll watch things and think like, oh, he was alive during, like that's a whole other conversation. But like, it's a, like film really kind of opened my eyes. And like of course music, like rap music in particular really opened my eyes to a lot of that before I would even get the chance to like experience any of it for real. So like for you, like when did music become capital M music for you? Like when did that become something that wasn't just like a thing in the background that you listened to on occasion? Like,
Oh, man. I mean, I would say again, as we keep connecting back to parents, music has been always in my life. I say as much, I mean, more present than say film, even because as a young
mm,
kid, I grew up, with a single mother, and I felt like music was probably something that she used oftentimes for her own therapy, her own help, her own mood. So music, I don't have a real specific moment that it was like it became important, because it's always been important.
yeah,
Um, I really attribute a lot to my mother in that while we didn't always listen to the same styles of music, the house was filled with music. She bought me CDs early on for birthday presents. Like she was never like one of those people that was like, you know, I mean, of course, she told me to turn it down when I was trying to learn how to DJ or do some stupid stuff, and be like, hey, man, the volume's all the way up. Like, yeah, I don't need to have this. But, overall, she was always encouraging. When I wanted to learn to play music, she was down to help me out with that, or whatever. So it's like, yeah, I don't have an exact moment of where it becomes capital M, because it's really like it's in my it's like just my genetic fabric is sound, like I can't really live a life without music. It's hard for me to go into places where it's silent, or you go into somebody's business and there's no vibe, no feeling, no, it lets you know what time it is. Like, I mean, even if you don't like the genre, you just get an idea of people. It's very informative, you know what I mean? So for me, it's been there since I was young, man. I have been down with music, and music's been down with me.
so so you mentioned it earlier, when did you start collecting vinyl? Like how,
Probably in
yeah.
high school, like really, yeah, I would say, you know, I mean, I guess I'm dating myself at some point, but it's like I'm probably trying to get into figuring out how to be a DJ like in '93.
Mhm.
Um, Buying some shitty turntables from a Salvation Army, you know what I mean? Trying to get a mixer, and yeah, started buying records. So that's high school. So I would say, from '93 till now. You know what I mean? A buddy of mine just asked me the other day, like, yo, you still buy records? And it's like, yeah, man, I'm not one of these people I stream music, but I really love music. I mean, I love to hold music. I love to look at
Yeah,
music. All of that stuff that when I was younger, I think I probably said it in other interviews, but it's like when you're from an era when you're tearing photos out of magazines, you're seeing images that are inspirational. It's connecting to things that you like. It's like, it started to inform each other. I get an
right.
album, I look at the credits, I look at oh, it was recorded in New York City. I was living in, like I said, southern Maine, in a small town. This was like aspirational, you know what I mean? Without even
Right.
knowing it. It was guiding me to New York, but I didn't even at that moment know that I wanted to be a photographer. I didn't know just the seeing New York City and all of this stuff with the sounds always was like, yo, that's where stuff is at. That's where people are creating. That's where
Right.
it feels like things are thriving, you know, not that it doesn't thrive in a small town, but when you're young and you're looking at, and again, blessings that my family took me international. So I never was in a space where I felt like, yo, I just, you know, some people, they feel relegated to, you could be in the suburbs of Jersey and you might have friends who are like, yo, this is where I'm at. This is where I stay. This is my happy place. I don't need to go 20 minutes to New York City. I don't, you know,
Right.
and you short yourself a little bit when you're not really moving out and kind of getting to connect with the rest of the world for whatever, better or worse, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like I love being home, but like, you know, being as close to New York as I am, you know, like that's like I've always kind of had that, like, you know, like that's always been a blessing for me, just in the sense that like I've had easy access to New York City. And, you know, like I wouldn't have gotten certain connections. I wouldn't have gotten certain opportunities. I wouldn't have made certain connections. Like I wouldn't have met you if I wasn't in the city. You
Sure.
know,
Yeah, man.
I wouldn't have met, you know, like Woods and Elucid. Like I met them at shows,
Right.
you know, like, and that's how we got familiar before I'd even begun writing for real, you know. So like that's super important. And you're like on the topic of like physical media. I'm not gonna turn my computer and show you, but I have all my records sitting next to me right now. I've probably been collecting for like about 10, 11, 12 years. Like I have a whole crate and then like a plastic laundry bin full of records. I'm
Yeah,
looking
man.
at the Sharif and Dove album right now, and
Is that the
um
decay?
yeah, SDK.
Yeah, dude.
And you know, I'm lucky enough to have written two batches of liner notes for two records as well, and I have those hanging on my wall right now. So like that's
Yeah,
like,
man. I mean, again, it's like it blows me away sometimes to think like a 1 inch by 1 inch thumbnail just doesn't do the justice of what it is to be able to read liner notes or to
yeah,
physically hold some. I mean, again, I guess it does justice for that person who doesn't care or isn't, I don't want to say care, but I'm just saying like maybe they're not as concerned. I just got to plug my phone in.
yeah, no, you're good.
Yeah, I think it's like you get so much information from just physically holding something or looking at it. It's just like, okay, you know, if you listen to Sharif's record and you look at the album art, maybe you have a connective tissue there that you feel like, yeah, there's a reason why they chose this photograph, or somebody decides to do an illustration, or sometimes you're like, yo, why the fuck did you use that artwork? That stuff's
Yeah,
terrible. It's not always hidden. You know what I mean? So it's like it does usher in a visual for what the music will be. And yeah, it sounds beautiful. It's just like, you know, that's a precious thing for you to have there. To these are your interests, or, you know, if I look over here and I would pan the camera, you know, you would see like, oh man, this dude got crazy reggae records, or, you know, like
yeah,
whatever your, as much as I listen to hip hop, like I'm a music man. So it's like,
right,
man, I'm listening to, you know, cumbias right next to reggae, right next to hip hop, right next to some fucking hard rock, or, you know, Radiohead or whatever, you know, it's just like
right.
all of that stuff is really, it's like a sazon, you know, it gives you like that seasoning to be like, oh, okay. And when you meet people who are in that similar vibe, you just immediately can start to connect and talk with folks because you're informed, you have an opinion, you have a direction, you know, you're not just like,
Right.
oh, I don't listen to music. I mean, I don't understand people who are like, I don't really like, I'm music's not a big deal to me. I'm like, that's just bananas.
Yeah, I don't. It
I
never
can't
made sense
trust
to
you.
me. Like, yeah, honestly, yeah, it's like and you know, like not to belabor the comparison too much, but like I feel the same way when people tell me that about movies. Like I can count on one hand the amount of people I've met who told me like I was talking to them about movies and they were like, oh, I don't like movies. And I was like, you don't like movies? And
Right.
like just like you don't like any movie? Like
Right.
forget like forget like specific genres. Like you don't like movies.
Right.
You've never like enjoyed sitting down and watching a movie.
Yeah.
Like it's just such like a like movies and music are these two like universal experiences, and it comes back to like what you were saying before. Like I'm about the experience, like
Yes.
like I'm a traditionalist in the sense of like I love to go to the movie theater and watch movies. I like
I
watching
see
movies at
that.
home,
Yeah,
but like
man.
I love going to the theater, getting a snack, and watching a movie on a big screen, surrounded by 40 strangers. And I love that, like and you're like I love the experience when it comes to, like you said, like holding a vinyl record or a CD in my hand and looking at the booklet and looking at the photos and reading the album credits, like that's like even if I'm in a position where I can't play a record, I can at least like listen to the album on streaming and hold the physical record in my hand and like look at the
Yeah,
track
man.
list, like that's important to me, like like I'm somebody who also just likes to listen to music, but it's always going to feel better when there's like an experience attached to that,
For
like
sure.
it just makes it like it just feels fuller to me that way. Like
Yeah.
that's,
I
but
have
not
peeps
everybody's
that
like
I
that.
see
Yeah.
that you go to the cinema. I've like seen on the Instas or whatever that it's like, oh no, again. But it also takes effort, right? It's like that's your
Yeah.
thing. Like it's like somebody who's going, bro, just wait till it comes to the streaming. It's not the same on your 45-inch television, or maybe you got some baller, I don't know, 60-inch television. That shit does not compare to when you got the crazy sound system of a cinema. You got
Yeah,
the,
man.
I should know, but right now I don't even know the real film size of like a screen. But there is no, it's not comparable. It's like an
It's
immersive
really not.
experience,
Yeah.
and so it's like, again, that's why I can appreciate that when somebody has that, where it's like, hey, it takes effort to go to the record store. It takes effort to go to the cinema. It's,
Hmm.
this is what separates you from the person who doesn't want to take effort to do that. Doesn't make
Yeah.
you necessarily better, but it's like,
Right.
it's also like, well, this is what I like to do. So, what I mean, this is what informs the person who you will speak to, or the share an opinion on, or a recommendation. It's not just kind of some Xerox copy of some shit you just read off the computer that you're like, I haven't seen it, but I heard it's good, blah, blah, blah. It's like,
Right.
nah, go in there and do the homework, go in there and watch it, go in there and see the directors that you appreciate, or the cinematographer, or the, recently my wife, we were talking about, she was saying how there's, a whole thing with people with Wong Kar-wai, like, that there's like these new devotees to stuff, or a Wes Anderson, or, whoever it is that the technology does push in front of people, sometimes at an accelerated pace, where suddenly you're like, wow, there's big buzz about somebody who's been making films forever, but because of the computer, it kind of microwaves things, and is suddenly everybody's looking at that, or everybody's interested,
Right. That's a great point. And yeah, no, Wong Kar-wai is, like I didn't see my first Wong Kar-wai film until college, I think. And he's incredible. I mean, I don't even know what else to say. Like that whole Hong Kong movement is
Yeah.
fucking nuts. And like seeing like elements and reflections of that in, I bring this up a lot, and I'm sorry I keep doing this, but like seeing it in like Everything Everywhere All at Once, like in the alternate reality where the two of them are like, Michelle
That's
Wong
on my
is,
list.
yeah, what watch it at some point, it's great.
Yeah, man,
But
definitely.
yeah, but yeah, but like just like, like that's, once again, like he's somebody who's creating an experience for you to, like just to like go through in all of its glory.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'll always have respect for that. And like since I know you initially went to school for film, like to make documentaries, like when did just like when did you know that art in general was going to become more than just a hobby for you? Like when was it like, I'm a lifer, I'm in on this shit, like this is gonna be me, this is me now, like
As much as it started again, really, with trying to do the film, it really, I mean, everything solidified really with photography, dude. It's like
Yeah.
cinema and documentary and everything was like this departure point, and I thought like, oh, I'm gonna pursue this and whatever. But really, when I started making photos and I really was able to kind of be self-contained and make my pictures, and yeah, it just clicked. Like we said earlier, like it also kind of, you know, was a connection to my father who I never knew. So it's like, I mean, he was
Right.
alive, but he passed when I was 15 months old. So I don't really have a living memory of like what it was
Right.
like, but I know that I'm here as a result of him, and the photos that I've shot of like Arm& Hammer, some of those are captured on the same camera that he used.
Oh man.
So it's like,
Shit.
those are images that like, again, like I don't really know how to always properly articulate the feeling of like seeing a photo of my dad holding a camera, knowing he's taking a photo of something, and then later on being like, I'm holding the same camera. I made the Paraffin album cover with that camera. We've now made the We Buy Diabetes test strips album cover with that camera. So it's like something that for me is special, So it's like it really started to solidify, because then I became addicted to it in a different way than I was with filmmaking. Like it was just, you could roll with the camera, a point and shoot. You can roll with the 35 always in your pocket. You could, like with the cinema, it was a bit, especially back when I first, in the late 2000s, because that's when I really started to lock in with it. It took a lot more effort I wasn't just rolling with like a Super 8 camera or a Super 16 Bolex or, it
Right.
was like, it was a bigger deal. But when I discovered like, oh, I have this camera, I can make photos of things that I'm interested in, and become obsessive about it, So it's like, I would say, 2003 is really, even though I'm in college in the 90s, late 90s, it was like I was kind of on a river that was putting me down towards my destination of being like, this is going to inform you to get to the camera for still photography. The pursuit of still photography is going to circle back and inform your motion for later on, because
Right.
visually, I know that I have, I have my version of seeing the world, my eyes, and that nobody else is seeing it the way I see it, So it's like it was a beautiful discovery. So yeah, I would say, late early 2000s is really when it starts to kind of all come together to be like, hey man, you're going to have other things that are going to come and go, but this is going to be a constant that you're really going to. What did your man Nas say at the beginning of Illmatic? It was like, you doing this with or without the record contract. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like he was fortunate at 18 that he struck the hammer and made it and popped it off. And, some of us, it takes a lot longer. It's like you
Yeah.
discover it and you go on your journey, but you're doing it because you just feel that internal like desire to do it. To Nobody's telling you like, yo, go out and take a picture. It's like, oh bro, how can I not take a photo of that? Oh, sorry guys, I got to stop and go take a photo. Or
Yeah.
people eventually be like, bro, come on, we got to do so. You can't just always be taking flicks.
That's so tough. Yeah, nah. And like, like you found that and you took it, you took it to some pretty you took it to some pretty wild places before you would even like, like because like I know that in your earlier career you had been taking photos for people like Double XL and it's like
Yeah.
a bunch of other places. So like when did you start like professionally taking photos and like actually like working within like when did you start taking photos of people for money? Yeah, there we go.
Kind of at that, it, to be honest, dude, it kind of started to come together. Like, I mean, it was slow. So it wasn't like, oh, just making I was nobody. So, and I'm still, I mean, not to say it's nobody, but it's like it's a cutthroat world out there, right? So it's like you can got game, but that doesn't mean that people want to play with you. People might
Facts.
be like, yo, this person got, you know, a direction and a sensibility, but I have my friends who I want to use for whatever. So in that same early 2000s, that's when I decided, like, hey, I'm going to try to start making images, and I'm going to start trying to see if I can get books, pardon me, magazines, you know, to see if they would let me rock with them and kind of make photos and do whatever. So again, everything like around 2003, 2004 is when I really tried to set it off. And then
Right.
year in and year out, you know, get opportunities, not get opportunities, and just keep going at it, you know? So it's been a long time now, you know what I mean? And like magazines, record labels, uh advertising stuff, you know, and
Yeah.
it's like it's all right at the right moment, you know. I mean, early on, it's funny, I was thinking, I mean, we don't have to talk about that, but you know, timing is everything. It's like a close friend of mine who is now one of the most respected artists out there. You know, Woods is like, that's, we've been buddies, friends since 96, you know what I mean? So
Right.
it's like, oh, what would life have been had his music been received the same way time that we were starting off, when he's starting rapping or I'm making photos, or you know, but that's not what life is. Life was like, yo, dude's got to cook and cook privately until he creates such a body of work that people look back on the discography and are like, wow, I'm surprised that I never knew that this man was so fucking amazing with his brain power, you know, that
Right.
his pen is, you know, I've always said that Woods is like the James Baldwin of rap. And it's like, he's like, arguably will go down as one of the best writers ever. You know what I
Oh,
mean? Like,
easy, 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 easy.
I mean, and it's like, you know, so had it been different and we were making photos earlier, that we were, but they weren't getting received in the same way, you know? So it's like life
Right.
just tells you, hey, dude, you got to be patient or not be patient. And sometimes people, they lose it and they give up on it, or they just stick to it and keep carving at it and trying to like steel sharpen steel and make better photos, write better raps, get better this, get better that. And, you know, again, just do it so that you satisfying to get your own shit off, right?
Right, absolutely. And like, like while you were out there kind of earning your bones, like you've taken photos of like, like you've done magazine covers with Pharoah Monch, you've done stuff
Yes.
with LP and
Yes.
Ill Bill, and like one of the earliest things that I saw that really caught my eye was like I've heard this album so many times and I didn't realize you took the photo for the cover is Sean Price's Jesus Price.
Right.
And I've been on a Sean Price kick for the last like week and a half. He's one of my favorite rappers. I love him.
Tremendous.
I remember exactly where I was when he passed away. I was working at Watch Loud with my man, my OG Jerry Barrow, and we got the call when it happened, and it was really really sad.
Hell yeah.
Rest in peace to P. He's amazing, son.
Yes, man.
But like talk to me about shooting the Jesus Price cover, because like it's just so like when I think of photos of Sean Price, like that's one of the ones that always pops into my head. Just like that nice little, like it's like almost sepia tone, but not really. It's like it's got like the browns and purples. It's really really striking stuff. So like
Appreciate it,
talk to
bro.
yeah, talk
Yeah,
to me about that.
that was a early moment. That was like again, you know, Duck Down. Shout out to them that they gave me the opportunity. You know, I think they were probably also wise enough to be like, hey man, you know, the music business, small word M, big word B. So it was like, hey, you could either go try to pay some very well-known photographer to do something and the budget is probably going to get eaten up, or you could be like, hey, let me give a shot to this somebody who's out here trying to cut his teeth and make some marks. And yeah, man, I was very blessed. I have been a big fan of Sean Price. Monkey Bars was like a big album that I was
Incredible.
really into. And in another section of my life, I tried to do the writing of music. I tried to write little music reviews and, and I remember hearing that album, somebody had sent it to me, and I was like, obviously Helter Skelter was Helter Skelter and Boot Camp, but Monkey Bars really was that time to hear Sean by himself and to really just see what a tremendous talent, or shall I say, hear what a tremendous talent he was. You know what I mean? It was like, yeah, man, like funny, yet I'll fuck you up, but funny, but I'll fuck you up. You know what I mean? All that street stuff, all of that family stuff, that the beginning of an era of music where some of the veneer of what an artist was supposed to be was getting stripped away. And it was beginning to show you like, yo, I can be all of this, and yet I'm still kind of your regular dude. I can be on a Destiny Child thing, and I can be riding the 2 train. I can be doing, you know what I mean? So, that music connected to me. So again, when I threw my hat in the mix to try to shoot the Sean Price, the Jesus Price, it was very DIY, like a lot of stuff. I mean, some basic location. I think we shot on Broadway near Flight Club. There's that Gothic church like up the block going to Union Square.
I know exactly the one you're talking about. That's crazy.
And that's where we shot it. So the next time you walk by those big doors, those doors are the background of that cover.
Wow.
All of the photos from that packaging are all taken between maybe, what is that? It could be 11th and 12th Street or 12th Street and 13th Street on Broadway.
Yeah, something like that. It's right near Webster Hall, basically.
Yes, exactly. So it was kind of like one of those things of like, hey, are you interested, or whatever, however the email was. And it was like, hell yeah, I would love to be able to do this. And to his credit, Sean, he was, I think Sean's personality was like, either immediately he liked you, or not to overstep and say liked you, either he could work with you, or he thought you might be some bozo clown, and it was going to be like, fuck off, and I feel fortunate enough that in the times that we did work together, that I do believe he trusted the vision that I had, you know what I mean? So later we shot the Helter Skelter. They did an album packaging. It was much more photoshopped. It was called Dirt. It was The Incredible Rap Team, and it was kind of like the follow-up, and it had Sean in like a Superman kind of super hero outfit.
Right. I remember this. Yeah.
So the stuff with Jesus Price was before that. But yeah, it was cool, dude. It was very low key. I mean, Sean, he might have been there by himself. You know what I mean? I was there. A friend of mine, Todd, he helped me with some like styling. He brought the baseball new era with like the P. It was a Pittsburgh P, but he had bedazzled it, or he did something, something that was like a little spicy,
Yeah, nah, like it's like I really, you talk about like iconic New York rap photography, and like you can't not talk about Sean Price. Like he has such a look, and it wasn't even, he was like, I don't want to, I don't want to like patronize or anything, but he's like an emblem of a certain era of New York to me. And like not even just like of an era, but like, like when I think of the average New Yorker, I think about Sean Price.
Sure.
So like, and I think like I think that comes through in stuff like the Jesus Price cover, and like even on the cover for the album he did on Duck Down that came after Monkey Bars with the animated cover where he's in the polo and all the and like all the apes are around him and they're all dead. And I forget what the album's called.
That's like later on. Yes. Yeah, man. I'm forgetting the title right now, but yes.
But like he's just
Sean was your without being, it's not average Joe, but like that's what I mean. He was like, yo, I put my pants on one leg at a time, like,
right. Salt of the earth type dude.
Right. I mean,
Yeah,
I
you
can
know.
rap my ass off. I could beat your ass off if I have to too. You know what I mean, or whatever. But it's like
Right.
there wasn't always, the smoke and mirrors of, and not that every musician is, it's that people are guilty of it, but you've been doing this long enough that you also do know there are those people that are out there that it's kind of a fabricated facade, or like, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, the veneer that's there, that it's like, nah, who's the real you? You know what I mean? And again, to tie back into Woods, it's like these are the things that listeners nowadays gravitate towards. People, if you listen to Ka, people want it, that listener wants to hear the real person, the real narrative, the real life story, the, if I grew up there, if I didn't grow up there, I can appreciate that your artistry is at such a masterful level that it transports me there.
Yeah, that's the guy, man. Ka is incredible. Like, I
Yes,
can't
dude.
say enough good things about him
Yeah.
and his artistry, and just, yeah, wow. Like, but I also don't
Not to
want to.
jump, but I was just,
Yeah, no, of course. Of course, yeah. No, I'll take any opportunity I get to talk about Ka. So no, it's all good.
yes.
Like, so like as you start to dig more and more into photography, like you just like the amount of names that you just started to rack up across both the underground and the mainstream. Like, you got Joey Badass, like you taking pictures with Jersey's Reggie P, and of course, Prodigy, Two Chains, More Mother,
Yes.
Freddie Gibbs, Clips, Max B, 50 Cent. Like, you
Yes.
like I could sit here for like 10 minutes and list all the people you've taken pictures of, and like I think like we spent a lot of time talking about veneers and just like authenticity, and just like, just kind of being able to experience a person, or like being able to experience the person behind the image, like people like, in particular, the people like 50 Cent, who's like, he's a fucking superstar. He's on tour all over
Hell
the
yeah.
world right now, like, so just like as you get, like as you get more experience to start taking more pictures and start meeting more people, like how much easier does it become for you to kind of be able to see past that veneer? Is that something you even think about? Like, is it just like a thing that happens where you just like notice a thing and it's like, oh, that person's probably fake, but like, yeah.
Well, I mean, at this point, I mean, I don't want to be like sounding like you're judgmental, but of course there are certain
Right,
people
yeah.
that there's certain things that you might just not be interested in dealing with because you just kind of feel like it's not really on the wavelength that you want to do, I mean,
Yeah.
when I had the opportunity to photograph 50, I mean, that was at like, dude is going up there on G Unit, you know what I mean? So
Right.
it was a big deal for me to photograph him, but 50 was much more, I don't know the real 50. I didn't get to
Right.
meet the real 50. Like, I mean, that's, at a certain level of artists, sometimes all of that is shrouded and protected for only their most inner circle, or maybe not even the inner circle. You know what I mean? Like somebody like Fifth that was like, yo, do the photo shoot, entourage, people, blah, 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 magazine folks. It's a big fucking mix of folks. So it's like you're you have a job to do. So I think like the more I do it, the better I am, because I know how to deal with situations. I know how to deal with personalities. I know how to manage things. I have an idea that I set out with an intention. Usually there's something to kind of be like, okay, this is a starting point. And then, I could show up to make the photos and be like, all right, throw that all out the window. Like, that's not what we're doing at all,
Right.
because you get the energy from somebody and you can say, yo, they're in a funky mood. A lot of photography, you got to be like a psychologist. You got to be a personality manager, in order to try to get your best things.
Right.
So it's like, and
And
that's
it's the
not
same.
easy, but
Yeah, sorry.
every photo is not
Yeah.
going to be your best photo. You know what I mean? So it takes a lot of work. So it's just like, not to step on what you're saying, but it's
No, totally.
with the experience, I'm sure, like a writer, it's like, yo, when you wrote your first thing, you're like, oh, I'm nice or whatever. But now you're like, okay, I can tell like quicker of things that might be like, oh, I'm going to tie into this thing, or I'm going to exclude that, or, because
Yeah.
your own craft more. And you might have your own bullshit detector where you're like, hey, not everybody is for Dylan to write about. Not everybody is for Alexander to photograph. You know, I mean, you can do stuff for money,
Yeah.
but you also have moments that you're going to be like, you know what? I'm not always chasing certain things, because it's like it can be more headache or problematic than it is if you're just genuinely like, yo, I'm with that.
100%, man. Yeah, nah, it's like, like I love the point you made about just like having to kind of be like a psychologist when dealing with people sometimes, because like it's like you really, like as a journalist, that's something I've experienced a ton. Like I've done interviews where somebody was, like clearly not in the best of moods, and like you just gotta, you gotta get the story done regardless. So
Right.
you try to be understanding and move around and just like try to understand them as well as people as you possibly can, and just like get what you need. Sometimes everything's different. There's you just like I guess what I was trying to get at by asking that question is just like you, like in the business we work in, you eventually just figure out how to read people pretty quick, even if you don't wind up knowing everything about them.
For
It's just
sure.
like you can just kind of like, like the bullshit detector is gonna give you like the general makeup of what you need really fast, like five,
Yeah.
10 minutes, and it's like, I can tell the type of person you are 90% of the time.
Yes.
I'm always really interested to talk to people, like who work, closely with like these larger than life figures,
Yeah,
and
man.
like like especially somebody, like since we've talked about it a bunch, like somebody like Woods, who, like you said, like y'all have known each other for years and had known each other for years before, like before he'd been making music, before you've been taking photos, and when did y'all first meet, and when did you or yeah, let's start there. When did y'all first meet, and how did your relationship first start to develop?
Through music.
Yeah,
I mean,
sounds
we
about
met
right.
early on. Like we met in like the like 90 late 90s, 96, something like that. And yeah, we just connected over hip hop. You know what I mean? Like at that point, it's just literally playing records, and he was around the way somewhere and he heard playing records and kind of, I think, was just curious to see, yo, who's that jamming whatever. um I think it was like J. Rue the Damager, Come Clean, you know what I mean? And it was,
Woo!
yeah, and it was one of those moments of like, yo, and from there, we both enjoy cannabis, we both enjoy movies, food, I mean, different backgrounds, and yet, like, my mother was from northern Spain, his mother is from Jamaica, his father's from Zimbabwe, my father was from Germany. uh Commonalities that just kind of brought you together, you know what I mean? And again, like on a person to person, you know what I mean? And
Right,
little by little, your friendship is, that's the most important part to me, right? So it's like
of course.
you only have so many real genuine friends. So it's like that guy is definitely somebody who I value his opinion. And I always, if you've known him, like you always knew how bright he was. So it's like, it's never been a doubt that the dude was just like, you know, what did he say? Big jar when you donate the brain. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
something, it's like your man got the crazy brain power. So, yeah, life was kind enough to put us together, and music, we always listening to hip hop. That's really the main, we listen to a lot of stuff, but to hip hop was really what kind of put us together. And I think, from there, you just kind of stay around each other, and then eventually he's doing one thing and I'm trying another thing, and it's like, hey, do these go hand in hand? I need some photos for something. Are you interested in making a picture? Hell yeah, I'll take a photo. And from there, that's why it's like, the marathon that Nipsey Hussle always referred to. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's not an easy road to run for everybody. It's like, especially in today's age where things are so quick, and I'm not saying microwave to disparage people's movements or anything, you know, but it's like we also coming from a time period where people weren't fucking with what we were doing, where people weren't
Right.
getting on his music, where people weren't always down for my photography. You know what I mean? There are photo directors from magazines who never returned an email, you know, people who
Yeah.
were, it's just like Alexander who, like, you know, and not to say that those people are always like, oh, Alex, what's up? But, you know, there are people now later on who will be like, oh, shit, I remember when this person was trying to kick in the door, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not that the door has been all the way kicked in, but, you know, in our world of what we've been doing, we've contributed some great stuff, you know? I mean, again, the discography on his part is just bulletproof. And when I've been able to kind of do my 1-2, I hope that it's complemented his music and given people a visual to kind of access before they even heard the music. You know, if they see something that they'll say like, yo, you know, when people tell me, oh, I feel like that's Richter before I even know it's Richter, you know?
Mm-hmm. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the first project you started, the first project you took photos for was Today I Wrote Nothing, right?
Actually, the first stuff I ever saw was like earlier on. Woods had a project with this guy called Privilege called Supercron
Super
Flight
Cron Flight
Brothers.
Brothers. Mm-hmm.
And I think the first thing that we ever did was that there was like a single called Dirtweed.
Okay.
And I took some photos that were used on the cover. MF Doom instrumental, I believe he spit over. And yeah, that's like at the very beginning of like, you know, Backwoodz. I mean, at that point, he
Got
already
it.
has started trying to rap. He's already not started. He's obviously rapping. He did the camouflage, but that was like his first foray into kind of a group effort, you know, which didn't pan out. And yeah, I mean, here we are now, years later, with him and Elucid, the Wizard, and it's like, you know, these guys are, yeah, I'm so stoked for people to hear the album next week.
Yeah, I can't wait either. I got to hear it while I was in Chicago back in July. I've had this album for, I know you
You,
probably had it for longer than me, but like, you know, like
oh,
it's
you have it, yes. Okay.
oh yeah,
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 so
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Yeah, it's crazy, you know, like I don't want to spoil it too much, but it's you know, it's different from anything I've heard from anything Arm& Hammer, you know, like it's like it's more electronic and dissonant than anything they've ever made, and I love that sound on them, you know. It's just like, and you know, like there's a it like Backwoodz in general is just in like a whole new cycle right now. Like JPEG Mafia is back in the fold. He's got a bunch of beats on there. You
Yep.
know, Haram is here. She's got 2 beats on there.
Killing it.
Shout out to Haram, by the way, fellow Jersey native. She's the
Is
best.
she? Yeah.
Yeah.
Big up her. That
Um,
trauma mic beat is crazy.
wild, man. Like you know, like so, you know, like it's just really dope to like I just love the fact that, you know, like, so like I didn't realize that you had been around that long. For some reason I you know, like I think one of the earliest memories I had of seeing your name was attached to Today I Wrote Nothing.
I did
Because
contribute to that. No,
right,
I
right, of
did.
course.
I
Yeah, yeah,
did.
yeah.
That
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like the first like proper album cover after History Will Absolve Me
right.
that I
Cool.
got to contribute to. And then from there, it's been no looking back. Whenever he throws the pass, is like, all right, Alex, you got to fucking run this into the end zone. You know what I mean? Or whatever the
Right.
case is.
Yeah, nah. So like, you know, like there's 2 particular covers I need to ask you about. The first one, you mentioned it before, is the Paraffin cover, which like what a fucking image that cover is, man. Just you know, just like this one woman holding a child, and
Yes.
it's spray painted God on the back of the wall. It's
Yes.
iconic, you know, like it's like talk to like how did that photo come to be? I don't know the woman's name, but like
That's
just, you know,
Elucid's wife.
oh, really? Okay.
And
See,
that's
I'm mad.
Elucid's son.
Wow. Okay. And see, I've met her too. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, most people don't know. To be honest, dude,
Ah,
most
wow.
most people don't know at all. And I mean, the sorry, not to step on your question. If
Yeah. all I was gonna ask is just like, how did that, I'm just like, how did that photo come about?
Yeah. Thank God somebody was doing graffiti on Elucid Street, painted, a bunch of wall that had that on there. Like there's a wider photo. I can't remember exactly what it says, but as I pulled up in the cab, I was like, oh man, not only, God, but I was just like God in a good hand style in a way that I had already conceptualized, like, hey, I want to shoot this black and white. We had wanted to discuss this idea of like mother and child as the driving image, So I shot a bunch of different things in the street and blah blah blah, and then eventually was like, okay, we're gonna make these photos against this graffitied backdrop that I don't remember what it said, something about being with God or God protecting, or anyway. But yeah, it was one of those moments where it was like, I mentioned my father earlier, and that camera, I mean, that camera literally is from 1960 something, So it was like, this thing, it makes beautiful images. It's a Hasselblad 500C. At this point, I mean, it's not the fanciest of the Hasselblads, but it was like, again, it's a beautiful camera.
Yeah.
And yeah, those guys, I have to give them credit for trusting my eyes. You know what I mean? When I made the photos, when I suggest this photo looks the best, there's not a lot of discussion. There's not a lot of pushback about like, oh, Alex, we think this one is better. Or, you know what I mean? For the most part, it's like there's an inherent trust there on what we did, And I just feel
Right.
super blessed that made the cover, and that the album, again, for people who weren't familiar with those guys, it became the precursor to Shrines, and then Shrines to Haram, and Haram now to, and before that there's Race Music, and there's Furtive
Uh-huh.
Movements, and
Yeah.
when people do their due diligence, Woods has been able to work with very trusted creators, people that he believes in their vision, and that their vision has intention, and intention, I feel like, is a word that I often use, because it's like, we're not, whether it's a painter, illustrator, the people who are working in this kind of collective, it's not a half-assed thing. People have
Yeah.
a vision, they want to contribute, and to be trusted to do that, and not to necessarily have somebody trying to always micromanage, it is a great blessing. Obviously, Woods, Elucid, they have their vision, so if something was way off, they're going to be like, yo, I'm not with that. But for the
Yeah, of
most part,
course.
we are able to create stuff that they feel like off top is like, yeah, say no more.
Right. And like on that note, like there's no, I mean, like, for like as iconic of a shot as the Paraffin cover is, like the Haram album cover is, the Haram cover, and like all the photography you did for it that's in the CD booklet is just like, you know, like you, because like you got to think about, I mean, like, the context, but like, but just like thinking about the context of like, like this is another Arm& Hammer album. It's their first project with Alchemist. So like all the Alk fans are going crazy, all the Backwoodz fans are going crazy,
Right?
and like they're kind of overlapping in a way they haven't before.
Yes.
And and then this image comes out with these severed pigs' heads, like
Right.
like a real close-up image of
Yeah.
severed pigs' heads. It's not like they're
Yeah.
like in the background. It's like they are the foreground type shit. So like that happens. Y'all piss PETA off, which
I
is
was
just
gonna say PETA approved.
always a good time. Those are some wild people over at PETA. But like, so just like, I know you took those while on a trip,
Yes.
and talk to me about not just the cover shot, but like finding all the other like photos of the cigarettes and the alcohol, and just talk to me about bringing the visual aesthetic of Haram to life, because like it's so distinct and it's so visceral, and it's like it's like I feel like when I'm looking at the pictures, I can like reach in and touch them, like they're right in front of my face. It's really something special.
Yeah,
Like,
man. Well, I thank you for that. I mean, not to say yeah, man, but I appreciate that that's how you feel. And I would hope that, other people would feel the same way. I mean, it's a tremendous honor to not only just do one album packaging, but I was blessed that I was able to kind of do almost every packaging. You know what I mean?
right.
Like from the Backwoodz releases to the ALC Records releases to the Big Love Japanese version. I mean, it's like, so the Haram stuff, like you had mentioned, was made while traveling in the Philippines. I was with my wife visiting her family, and that was in a wet market. And
Right.
as we said, like, kind of tying back into earlier, when the photography really struck with me, you're doing it with or without your record contract. So you have the camera on you every day. It's like the same way you put your wallet in your pants. It's the way I put the camera in my bag. It's like
Uh-huh.
I don't leave home without it. And if I don't have it, I feel very naked. You know what I mean? I feel like I don't have my tool. So walking around, doing our little shopping, eventually we got into the section of the wet market where there was all those, for people who aren't used to being somewhere in a third world wet market, it's quite a shocking place. It's not like your butcher shop at Whole Foods where
Right.
everything is, you know, Americans aren't necessarily always so close to where their foods come from. And so everything has blood in it. Everything gets bloody when it gets slaughtered
Yeah.
and washed and whatever. Well, at this wet market, things were slaughtered, and it was just what you saw is what was there presented as a purchaser or a customer,
Right. That's real farm to table type shit, like
Straight up. I mean,
that.
straight up, dude. That was that guy there selling his things. Hey, can I take a photo? The first dude told me no, no photos. I seen another dude. I said, can I take a couple photos? This is the psychology. Okay.
Yeah.
That dude looks like maybe he'd be down for it. A little shit talking, and then boom, we get a couple pictures. And then later on, when Woods told me, I need a cover, do you have something? This is the title. And I presented a bunch of images. Once I was able to give him that photo, he was like, I don't need to have any more photos, like that will be the album cover. The stuff that you're talking about, the other images, I think that was from another project where I had gone to Jamaica and I had gone to Kingston and done a bunch of like micro stories to produce a zine called Sevens Clash. And it was 7 days in Kingston. And then again, when Woods was like, hey, I want to do a deluxe version, fortunately, I had images in the archive that he felt complemented the direction of the deluxe. So
Yeah.
sometimes you're commissioned to go make photos, and then other times people know, like, hey, that person makes a lot of pictures. Maybe in their archive, they have photos that can be utilized for a something different, but still ties into the overall vibe. Not that anybody knows it's Kingston, Jamaica, but Woods, again, being half Jamaican, these are all the things that kind of tie back together. It's like you're not faking the funk. You know what I mean? We might have not been there together, but I was there making the pictures, and then he's there as the artist to help be like, you know what? The night cover of the deluxe version is from a hilltop in Kingston, and then inside is from a community dance in Trenchtown. And then other photos are of people smoking spliffs when we're at a bar.
Mhm.
And it's just like, have photos, we'll share if with the right people, or given the right opportunity, hey, let's go make some photos and try to do something. So again, I feel very blessed to have been able to contribute to the beginning of the Arm & Hammer ALC connection, you know?
Yeah, that's a tremendous look for everybody involved, and for you, of course, like just like seeing, like having been familiar with y'all's work for, like I think I got on the Arm and Hammer train formally around Barbarians when that first dropped. So
Great
like
song.
yeah, so it's like, like so like I had already been around for like 3-4ish years
Yeah.
at that point. So like to see that moment happen and just be like, wow, like, like
Right.
that's, and like to see your work getting, like once again, like not to belabor it, but like to see, like people just like pissed about this photo of two pigs heads that they don't have any context about, and just like it just made me smile, just like, all right, like these guys are going places. They like really grabbed,
Oh
like
yeah.
not and like before anybody had heard any music, because it's not like it's like what they're doing with Test Strips. Like Test Strips is the first project they're putting out singles. Like,
Yes.
like up until then they had never dropped pre-album singles.
Yes,
They
dude.
just
I
like,
was just saying that
yeah,
to somebody. It's a whole new program right now.
right, yeah, no, because I was talking to Woods about it during the Pitchfork interviews, and I talked to Lucid about it maybe a couple weeks ago, and yeah, I think it might have been like right when Siri came out. Ask Siri If I'm Gonna Die came out. I was like, it's weird seeing y'all do singles, and he's like,
Right.
right, so it was funny.
I
But
mean, it is in some respect. I mean, literally today was just talking to somebody about like, even with this album cover that's coming out next week, it's out, right? It's already
right,
been
yeah,
out, but it's like usually things just appear and it's kind of like, oh shit, nobody knew. Nobody knows that on Friday, suddenly on their DSP, the fucking record pops up and they're like, dog, I had no idea. It was like
right,
real mystery, real magic. And not that
yeah,
it's not magic now, it's just a
right,
different game. Like there's different people involved, and obviously you got to kind of play the game with other folks. So it's like, but I agree with you that it is wild to be like, oh, okay, so first Trauma Mike, and then Siri, and then whatever, and then the release, and it's like they're
right.
killing it. I'm happy. I'm very stoked on how it's going down, but it's also funny to be like, yo, shit was so guerrilla style that it was literally like boom, everything on one time. You didn't
Right.
know what was happening, and then the rest of the day, people are like, "Holy shit, this is out!
Yeah,
Strap up!"
right. Like it's the difference between just like a smash cut to an image and like a slow fade. Like we're like
Yes,
at the slow fade right now, and that's
yes,
I'm not used to that for them. So that's cool. I like it.
yes.
Um, and like and yeah, before I ask you my last couple of questions, I wanted to touch a little bit on the day we spent at Willie Green's studio while
Yeah, for
Woods was
sure. That was a
while
great
Woods
day.
was while Woods was recording what wound up being a feature for this new Sam Herring this Sam Herring song
They
that
could
like
come and get me.
like, oh man, just like being there, like so yeah, for anybody who doesn't know, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I wrote a piece on the label for Pitchfork. I spent 3 months working on it. Richter was one of 17 other people I talked to, including Woods and Elucid and Green and Anton, who works the label. And like I talked to a lot of people, many of whom I've already had on here, some of whom I haven't. We'll have them on at some point. But like I like Pitchfork was between photography like directors. They were between media directors, and my editor Ryan Dunball, shout out to Ryan if he's listening, asked like, oh, do you have anybody in mind for this? I was like, Richter. Like, what do
Right,
you mean? Like it wasn't even a question. I
right,
was like, it's him or nobody. Like, who else
right,
is going to take photos of Woods?
right.
So like we made
Appreciate
it
that.
happen. Of course, we made it happen, and like the two of us showed up, and we just like talk to me about like the process of like, because you're like, I'm thinking back on those photos now, and like the ones that they wound up using were like the ones of Woods rolling up at the table. There was one of him coming out of the studio, one of him
Uh-huh.
coming out of the booth. There's a couple of him with looking over the screen with Willie Green doing his
Uh-huh.
thing. Like, yes, yeah. So like talk to me about your experience that day and like what it was like, kind of getting Woods, because it was like cool to see Woods in his element.
you know, those experiences, as again, as much as we known each other, it's not all the time that Woods is like come into the studio and like hang out. You know what I mean? Like it's not, it's a place of work, right? So
Yeah.
the dude is focused. The dude is serious about what he does. Like I'm not saying you have been with him. Like he's a funny guy. He makes jokes. He's silly. I lost you.
Hmm.
Okay, I might be jumping in and out. Um, but for me, it's always cool to be in that space. You know, I mean, to get to see recording versus, I mean, usually I'm hearing the music after it's been recorded. So like while I get the privilege of hearing something before it drops, you know, he still keeps a lot of stuff close to the chest. So it's not like people are just getting exclusive access. Even if you had the record earlier, I'm sure you probably still had to wait a while until he was ready to be like, okay, it's enough time now. It's 1 month, 2 months to, you know, he's not going to give you the record
Yeah.
6 months, 8 months ahead of the time because it's kind of like on his behalf, there's no reason for you to listen to it that early. It's like, hey, I want things to be new and fresh. And for me to be in the studio, that's how I feel for me. It's like it is new and fresh every time that we do get to see it because I also know he keeps improving. Green keeps improving. I mean, everybody is just getting better. Like as good as people are, the process of developing continues, you know? So to have the opportunity to do like reportage, kind of fly on the wall photography, it's a great space because not everybody gets to experience that. And I'm sure on your phone you have little clips of video or stuff that it's like,
I
hey,
sure do.
right? You know what I mean? It might be like, hey, man, somebody may see it or somebody may never see it, but you were there to witness what we have said of a tremendous talent writing and doing his verse and laying it down. And as the game goes, Willie Green getting more and more respected as being a tremendous talent for being a engineer, master, producer, audio tech, you know, type of person. So yeah, man, for me it was cool to be trusted again. It's all about trust. You got to
Yeah,
be,
man.
you're not getting in somebody's way, you're not acting like a weirdo, you're not asking questions, you're not getting too stoned that you fucking flop out, and you know what I mean? It's like you got a job to do. So for me,
Right.
that's where it's like that inherent trust is I don't have to worry about him saying like, oh, you know, I have to worry. He's my friend, so there might be times that he's just like, I don't want to do it. But it's not an issue of like I don't feel comfortable with what you want to do. It's just like somebody who takes pictures and might be like, you know, Woods is not the most photo. It's not that he's not photogenic. He's just not crazy about having photos taken. It's not a priority for him. Other artists, they put more priority on making a photo than they would on writing a rap.
Yeah.
Because they'll be like, it's more important to look fly on the gram or look fly wherever than, you know, this is not who our man is. This guy is like, okay, these lyrics, these poems, they'll live long, long after I'm gone, you know? And
Hmm.
so in that moment, I'm sure he's cognizant of trying to smoke Sam Herring on his own verse.
Yeah.
You know, you want to lay something down that the guy gets the verse and is going to be like, damn, okay, what do I do here? Do I re record? Do I just let it be? Do I, you know, whatever the case is. So for us to be there, it's a great, or shall I say, for myself to be there, it's a great experience because it's
Right.
an intimate look at the creative process.
Yeah, you know, and yeah, like you said, I say this all the time on the air and with people I talk about. Yeah, like trust is a really big factor for me too, you know, like
Yes.
and you know, and you know, like for me, you know, like not to toot my own horn too much, but like we had already had like some semblance of a relationship before that piece kind of came into fruition, but it still meant a lot to like have him and Green be like, we want you to come to the studio and like get and you like get some shit, you know, like and you're like and like you saying it, and like y'all have been friends for years, you know, and so like for it to be, you know, like that just shows how big of a deal it is to have us be in there, you know, and just to like have been around. And you know, like I spent he and I spent about 7 or 8 hours total on the phone across 7 or 8 interviews.
Hell yeah.
You know, like he gave me a lot of his time that he did not have to give me.
Oh
you
yeah.
know, and so you know, like that's like, you know, like that's one of the things I've really come to love and appreciate about that camp. You know, like if they know you're on the same type of time that they are, they give you everything. And it's, you know, like that really, you know, like that was one of the most, it's up until now, it's one of the most fulfilling things I've done in my entire career. And just like the friends I've made between you and Woods and Elucid, and all the just like the community that Backwoodz has cultivated is one of my favorites that I've ever been, you know, I've ever had the pleasure to be a part of. And I appreciate y'all trusting me to do. I told you this like 4 times when we were doing the thing, like, you know, like y'all's trust means a lot to me, you know.
Hell yeah.
Like,
I mean, that shit is critical, dude. People fuck things up. People are sloppy. People are eager to just, you know, I mean, I say the marathon before and I say it again. It's like little things. It doesn't have to, it's just like a marathon, you work 3 months on a story. You're not out there divulging like, hey guys, today I'm writing, you know. It's kind of like keeping things close to the chest. Work it through, get it right. Dial it in, sharpen it. And then when you're ready to deliver it, then it's like, oh, snap. Did you see that Dylan got the opportunity to write and speak to that many people? I mean, not all journalists have had that same access. Not all journalists have also been interested in doing that. You know, so it's like a balance where you decided to be like, yo, on my shoulders, I would like to carry the weight to try to pen this about this label, or these supporting characters, supporting cast in this piece, you know what I mean? And yeah, I think, you know, somebody, Woods or myself, it's like you remember when people fuck off. You remember when people try to play slick. You remember when, you know what I mean? Because at a certain point, it's like, you know, people aren't always looking like, oh shit, I gotta be like Dylan's the editor of the Fader or Pitchfork, so I got to be on my best behavior. Like at a certain point, it's like, yo, this is Dylan. He's a writer who could one day be that person. And then folks try to come around and be like, hey, buddy, you know, whatever. And it's like, you might be like, oh, it's all good, like no problem. But you might also be like, I remember when you were sideways, or when you were not given the support. And you know, the support could just be encouragement. It's support doesn't always even have to be like a check, or, you know, I mean, sure, it's like money is something, but you know, there are other things that are equally important when you're trying to make some movement in the creative space, because it's flooded with people who want to do stuff, but to really carve your shit out to be really like, okay, that's Alexander Richter. Like for what it is, there are people who are like, that's him. That's the guy who makes the photos, or that's Dylan, or that's Willie Green. Some people, it doesn't matter. Other people are going to be like, yo, pleasure to meet you, because I know you've been dedicated to your craft. I know you've done it with serious effort, with a focus, with like, you know, a respect, and again, a trust that you're not going to drop the ball, that it's not going to fail because of you.
Yeah.
Or we, you know, collectively.
Yeah, totally. And you know, like to kind of bring that idea full circle, I want to end by talking about the video, the short film he made about Rise. You know, and like he's and yeah, you know, like just to have, you know, like to have, you know, like he's somebody who granted you access to his like little domain of art. Like he, you know, like seeing like the most striking shot in the whole short film to me is when you walk through his house and it's just like littered in pictures and it looks like a fucking museum. And I'm just like, holy shit, you know, like, and like at the very end, he's talking about how like there's some things in here that people will never see because like,
and I didn't get to see them.
right, I'm sure, like like not even just because they mean stuff to him, but like people who don't have the experiences that we have, like it's like there's some like there was some shisty shit going on in those photos, like people
Sure.
in masks, probably holding weapons, probably holding drugs, like there's some shit that's not meant for everyone. And
Or even if it's not shicey, it's just not meant for you. It's just
right,
not meant to be shared. It could be
yeah,
totally PG, but it's
right,
like, yo, you don't need to see this photo of somebody that I had a deep love for, or whatever the protective
yeah,
nature of what you want to do. Not everything is to be shared.
exactly. And like, and you're like to like ask like a formal question, like, so how long had y'all known each other, and why was 2020, because it was made in 2020, right?
Yes, but I shot it in 2012.
Oh shit, okay, so all right, so you should okay, so
There
you
was a big time between logging it in and then editing it.
okay,
The pandemic fortunately threw me into the edit suite, but life
that's
had thrown
wild.
me out of the project for some time because life was life. So I had shot it. For those who don't know, and I guess just to give some context, uh, Dylan is talking about Dark Brother Rise, who was featured in the Prodigy autobiography, right?
Yeah, my infamous life, which I just finished reading like not even a week ago. So
Right.
yeah, this
And
is funny this
so
is
what
happening.
it is that for those, it's a photographer from Queensbridge housing projects, the 41st side of 12th Street, who was connected to everybody and was an archivist and documentarian of his neighborhood. And so the film is a film about a photographer who is a photographer, once again, without somebody giving him an assignment or giving him assignments. So for us to be given that access was a total privilege. That guy met me. He immediately could have closed the door.
Right.
According to him, other people had kicked around trying to find some stuff to talk about. They wanted to look at his photos or whatever. But it's like, if it doesn't feel right, you have Jules, you have Mobb Deep, late 90s when they're young. You have Capone Noriega, you have everybody from the bridge. But that doesn't mean that, hey, I'm some publication that he's going to give you access. So he felt the vibe, let us into the world. And yeah, it was a blessing to be able to make a documentary short film about somebody who I thought was inspirational to a person like me,
Yeah.
who preserves his memories, archives, documents his culture, his people. And, you know, it was a special space to be able to be access to. So it was like, I'm forgetting, you said, where did we meet him? And then I forget the second part of the question.
I don't think I asked the second part of the
Okay.
question. Just just like why, because I mean like you had gone to school for filmmaking,
Yes.
and then you dove headfirst into photography. So like
Yes.
why was 2012 the time for you to pick up the movie camera again and make the movie?
Because it was also a challenge. I mean, it was like early on, I have done like videos for Action Bronson and like
Yeah.
Mayhem Loren, and like before Bronson fully pops, I did a song called Barry Horowitz. I did a song called Brunch. Um, I was doing movie, a kind of like roundabout photography. I can do it singularly. I was able to do things by myself. Film, it kind of involved more people, right? So sometimes that was a bit of a workaround. The time that Dark Brother Rise came, a friend of mine mentioned this guy from Queensbridge. I had photographed Prodigy for some other project for a lookbook. I heard about this guy and reached out to the person to be like, yo, I would be interested in speaking to this photographer? Could Prodigy link me with it? I think Prodigy just felt like, yo, that seems good to me. I don't have to do anything myself. And you're trying to give shine to Dark Brother Rise. So he connected me with Rise. And yeah, it was a tremendous opportunity because, as I was saying earlier, it's like we are unique. I uniquely see the world. You uniquely write about the world. Like, you know, so I thought my eyes, my intention could do something different for this guy's story and try to share it a little bit. You know, I wasn't expecting anything to be award winning, but hey, I thought he deserved the attention and the space to be
Absolutely.
preserved, you know, and to be shared. Like, hey, man, I think you're important. Prodigy mentioned you in his book. He thought you were important, even if it's a paragraph. He didn't forget you. He
Right.
remembered you were from the bridge. He remembered you were the museum.
Yeah, nah, and this guy was writing stories about just like real quick detour, like just the amount of stories Prodigy has, not even just about the rap industry and like all the people he's met and all the fights he's been in and all like the bullshit that happened with Jay-Z and the G Unit shit.
Yep.
Like he took time, he took time to mention everybody who was important on his block. He took time to mention everybody in his family. I had no idea that his great grandfather founded Morehouse. That's
Right.
nuts. You
Right.
know, like just to like learn about his background and like I
Pedigree.
remember like I remember the section where Dark Brother Rise gets mentioned and just like the dude with the camera, like
Right.
it's just like stuff like that. It's like it's in a book, like it's like like it's somewhere. Like not only is it in a book that you can own and physically hold, like Prodigy recorded an audio book, and
Right.
like you can hear his name be said.
Yes.
Like that, like that's important. And just like seeing the way that you brought it, you like brought his little corner of Queensbridge to life, like through just like following him through the P's and seeing him just like talking to people. And like even down to like one of my favorite little details is the way that he holds his cameras, because
Yeah,
he's
man.
like there's like one shot where he's like walking down the street and he's like double fisting cameras and he's
Yes,
holding them
bro.
both by the straps. And I
Yes.
love that. Like it's like super dangerous. And if
Yes.
like if anybody else saw it, they'd freak out. But like I'm laughing because I'm like, I know so many photographers who would like they would pop a gasket seeing somebody do that shit. But
Yes,
like that's
dude.
just how he rolls.
Right.
And like that's tight to me. I like
Yeah,
that,
man. Yes, unadulterated or whatever, it's kind of like
Yeah.
there was no, he didn't turn on for the camera, it was, I mean,
Right.
obviously he was cognizant of it, but it was like, that was just Rise, and that's Rise interacting with the community. That's Rise when we went to, I think that was the last Mobb Deep show they ever played in Queensbridge, in the park, like,
Yeah. Because I was gonna ask earlier, because like you said that you shot it in 2012. I looked at the dates and I was like, wait a minute, like Prodigy definitely passed before COVID happened. So I'm like, when did this happen? Like,
yeah,
it
man.
makes sense that it was
Yes.
2012. Yeah.
Yes, dude. It was one of those things of like, yo, I remember talking with Woods and like he was getting ready to write the children's book. And we were both like, bro, we got to do these projects. Like, he knew I had shot this. He knew I had to finish it. I had known he had this book, I knew, and things take a while. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, is it perfect? Are there things that people could be like, oh, I do this or, whatever. But you're like, if you're not in the gladiator pit, you can't really talk shit. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you got to be in there ready to do it. So to the best of our degrees or respectively, I mean, obviously he had nothing to do with Rise, but I remember our conversation and was like, if I don't do this now, there is no other pause in life right now. You're going to fuck up and look back on it and be like, damn, dude, it takes a lot of work to make a film, and shout out to everybody who does it. You mentioned your boys earlier or whoever. It's like,
yeah, Rap Portraits. Shout out to Rap Portraits.
right.
Always and forever. Home team.
So it's a lot of work, and to do it at least with care, you know what I mean? Or try your best.
Yeah.
People slam things together and it could be like, but we're not trying to half step. So it was like, it took the course that it did. It came out when it did. And now it lives on the computer and the world. But to me, it's more like I'm just very honored that Rise gave me and gave us access to share that story, you know, because otherwise it just stays within the bridge and
Yeah.
Prodigy's little paragraph.
Right. Of course. Yeah. No, it's like, you know, like that like documentation, you know, like that's kind of that's kind of like the intersection where all of this meets, you know, like whether you're a musician or a photographer or a filmmaker or a journalist, or like there's like so many different other kinds, but like we all meet at that intersection of just like it's all documentation. All art is documentation. Like
Yes.
all art is proof that if not the person who made it exists, like the thing that they made the thing about exists or
Right.
existed or mattered to someone in some way, shape, or form. You know, like
Yes.
this stuff is gonna outlive all of us at this point,
Yes.
especially now with the internet, you know.
Yes.
And I think, you know, like that movie really or like your short really brought that to mind for me in a way that was just like really profound. You know, like like and like especially because like I mean like I've never lived in the Queensbridge projects, but I've been to the Queensbridge projects, so like I know the area, so it's just like nice.
It's just
It
access to a world that not everybody, again, without it being like a voyeuristic, you
right,
know, like
exactly,
you're
yeah.
inside. You're not on the outside looking in. You're on the inside looking out.
Right. You know, like, cause like when I was watching it, there's this YouTube channel called Hood Vlogs about this guy who travels to different hoods throughout America and just like documents like a day in the life of like whoever lives there, whether it be like the leader of a gang or like
Okay.
somebody who's like, you know, like and like there are aspects of hood vlogs that kind of make me uncomfortable a bit, you know, because like there are some instances where it does feel extremely like voyeuristic, and it's just like,
Sure.
okay, who is this for? You
Right.
know, like yeah, you know, but and like not always, but there's like a few moments where I watch and I'm like, like this kind of makes me uncomfortable in like a you shouldn't be showing this on camera sort of way. Like you should have thought to not do this kind of
Right.
way. But other times it's just like, like this is how certain people see parts of Chicago or
Right.
parts of New York or parts
Right.
of Cali or parts of
Sure.
Little Haiti in
Sure.
Florida.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
like this is like it's like we were talking about before. It is a window into this for people, and like there's good and bad things that come with that window, right? Not
Yes.
everybody's peeping in the window with the best intentions,
Right.
but but as long as you're doing it with integrity and in a way that people respect, then you can't really. That's it.
Yeah,
It's
man.
it's
I
it's
mean,
it's, 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 it's difficult.
yes, people can throw stones or whatever, but again, it's like the intention is genuine. And, somebody like Rise, he doesn't have to give any fucks about anybody.
Right.
He never chased photo editors. He never, you know what I mean? He never chased Pitchfork. He never, it's like, and that's not shading anybody. You know what I mean?
Of course
Some of
not.
us,
Yeah.
we've had times where it's like, yo, I'm photo editor. Did you get my email? Did you look at my portfolio? Am I the right fit for an assignment? I'd
I
love to do
feel you,
some work.
man. I totally get
And I
it.
mean, again, that's part of the hustle, and sometimes people are going to be like, click, ignore, 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 until one time that they be like, hey, man, let me check you out. And then they throw you in the game and they're like, damn, I should have been rocking with this person for a while. Or maybe it doesn't work, and that's okay. But for Rise, it was the intention never was double XL. Like, I'm sure, again, he's a photographer. So to see your work out there and celebrated and printed, it's special. It feels great.
I'm
But
sure.
not at the risk of kind of undervaluing what he was also creating. You know what I mean? All of those photos that you and I will never see, I can't help but be like, what is it? I would love to know. I'd love to see what, you know, regular life, hip hop, girls, whatever it was, that's just not available because you know that's something private, something special. But again, I can also respect that it's like, hey, we live in the all sharing society now, you know?
Yeah, that's
And
fact.
this documentary is already shot over 10 years ago. So it's like that's a fucking decade.
Right.
Let alone when the man's making photos a decade or two before that. You know, it's like to make your photos, you had to buy your film. You had, like he says, you had to develop and process. And, you know, there was such more of a long road to get to your final image than just whip out the iPhone, take a click, post it on the computer. Hey, everybody, this is what I did, or this is what I'm about. You know, it's like, and it kind of ties back in again to Backwoodz, or ties back into like shit is kept close to the chest. You don't gotta
Yeah.
shout. You don't gotta tell everybody until the shit's ready to go off. And then when it's time to go off, then you hope, yo, good, bad, whatever. You don't want indifferent. I don't want. I want people to either
Right.
fucking love it or hate it. You know,
You
and
want a
it's like,
reaction. You want a
right,
reaction. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Haram. If you look at Haram now, the photo I made, to be honest, is fucking under a whole bunch of censored photos. People have recreated their own illustrations of the album cover. Like,
Right.
people have suppressed it or pushed it down, you know? But that means
Right.
to me, like, yo, Alex, that was the right wave, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, you did what you needed to do, and yeah, no, yeah, no, I'm definitely the type of person who doesn't like to telegraph what I'm doing too far in advance most of the time. But like, I get it. Like, I know a lot of people who do, and that's obviously no
Yeah.
shade to them. That's just not how I prefer to move most of the
Yeah.
time. Like, if it's really special, then sure, I'm gonna do it. But like, I'm very choosy. I'm very choosy with those moments just because like you don't want to it can like people I know who do it are genuine, so this is obviously not to them, but like it can be very, like we were talking about before, it's very easy for that to fall into like opportunist
Yes.
territory, and like like you're just here for the moment and then you're gone.
Right.
Obviously not everyone's like that, but a lot of
No.
people are.
Yes.
And it's easy to fall into that trap, and you never want to get too ahead of yourself. And it's like, once again, like the word you used before, privilege. Like it's a privilege to be in these spaces. Like
Yes.
it's not a right, it's a fucking privilege.
Yes.
And you got to come correct, come with respect, and as long as you do that, like you're good. Like
Yeah, man.
like you're valid in all 50
I mean,
states.
that's how you bounce yourself out of the next opportunity. You know
Uh-huh.
what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
I've
like,
seen I've
hey,
seen it happen. I've
right?
seen it happen. It's happened to me, like
Right?
I've caught myself slipping and have lost opportunities because of that, but like it's all, you got to take it in stride, and like if you fucked up, take your L and move on. That's
Yeah,
it's just how it works.
for sure.
Um
You know, the gift, the trust, and, honesty and direct intention to try to treat it right.
yeah, man. And to bring this full circle, because we've been on the phone for almost 2.5 hours.
Oh, shit.
Mr. Richter, if your life was a movie, what would it be about?
Oh, man. Damn, bro. If my life was a movie, what would it be about? I hope it would be about a good person, a good man with curiosity of the world. I don't know if that makes most sense, but try to be a good person, dude. And I'm definitely genuinely interested in the world around me. So it might not be a flick for everybody, but for a person who would identify with like solid character, I would hope that they would fuck with me. And if they were to watch the film, that they would say, hey, the man has a genuine interest in looking at the little details, the big picture, everything, and trying to put it out there in a proper way that feels like honest, genuine, and in a space that is like, hey, man, you have a real approach to it. You're not just in it for the quick fix. It's like you're in it for the long run.
Absolutely. It's yeah, like that's, yeah, I mean, I get that from the work you do, and and I know plenty of other people do as well. And that's like, like it's, you can tell, like you can tell that you care. You can tell that you care about how, not just the way a thing looks, but how it's presented, because there's a
Yeah,
lot
man.
that goes into presentation across the board. And just like 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 this is like the formal part of the shit is over, but just like, once again, like I've been an admirer of your work for years, and even before I realized it was your work, I was admiring your work. So
Yeah, dude. And
it's
I mean, I appreciate that, bro, because I'm not to say,
yeah,
yeah, dude, like it's just taken for granted.
of
It's not,
course,
because you do a lot of stuff and you never know who's rocking with it, or
right,
you move kind of silently, you move anonymously. It's a photo that you don't know, hey, this guy likes it or this guy doesn't like it, but again, the intention is consistency, and hopefully that people are like, yeah, that dude knows what he's doing and he's serious about it and respects the craft.
right. And I can very much tell that you do. And yeah, just like, thank you for your trust in me, for a lot of things, but in particular, this, like you took 2.5 hours of your day to come in, or almost, maybe not exactly, but like, this is like, it's like between this and the Backwoodz thing and just like, just everything, like it's really been great to build. And so like your interest in wanting to come on here, like it's like I don't take for granted that people hit me asking to come on here. Like a lot of the times it's me reaching out, but like you and I have been talking and you showed a vested interest, and like that means a lot to me, because
Yeah, bro.
it's just me, man. Like I don't know, like I'm still I think this is going to be the 117th episode maybe I've recorded, and like it doesn't get any less surreal that like people want to do this.
Yeah.
So like it means a lot that you wanted to be here and to come talk to me, and just like as a fan and as a friend, thank you. It means a
Yeah,
lot.
man. Well, again, I appreciate it, because I mean, again, it's like, the vehicle, you need to access the people who communicate on what you're doing, so it's like your platform is the space to be able to further share, stuff about what I'm up to, where I have been, or whatever, because as many people that know, there are folks who don't know. And
Right.
for people to be able to be like, yo, let me try to lock in with that guy down the road, whatever. Some things work, some things don't work, and it's not meant for everybody, but definitely it seemed like a no-brainer to try to access the platform with all the other folks that we are rolling with, you know what I mean? So it's
For
like,
sure.
I appreciate that you had me on, and the long combo, hopefully something comes out of it, and somebody, whoever listens, you chop what you got to chop, and then it'll be something that will live beyond you and I for whenever somebody discovers it, now, next week, next month, next year.
Yeah, I don't plan on chopping any of this. I
Good.
usually don't.
Okay.
But yeah, nah, just yeah, it's like everything's new to somebody, so I'm just happy to put on for good people doing good shit. And you've been
Good,
doing
dude.
good shit forever. So
Yeah,
yeah.
man. So shout out to everybody if you stick to the last bit and you hear us over here. Big up yourselves, big up everybody supporting everyone, and yeah, I appreciate it, Dylan. It's good talking.
Always, man. We love you. We love y'all. Go buy yourself an ice cream sandwich. You deserve it. Thanks for listening. Shout out to y'all for making it this far. And shout out to all the black people listening too, because y'all really impeccable. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell a friend to come through next time. 1.